What's up, guys? Welcome to the Awesemo.com Showdown live before lock, presented by No House Advantage. Got a nice little game here between the Patriots and the Falcons. Definitely going to be a primetime game to remember. And fortunately, we got a perfect person to help break down this game, Neil Orfield. Neil, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm a little bit disappointed, as I was telling you a little bit ago. I didn't get the chasing the goat episode that I was looking forward to today. So pretty disappointed in that, but maybe it's a bi-weekly thing, a bi-monthly kind of deal. But I was waiting all week for my chasing the goat DraftKings show, and it just never came.
Yeah, man. I hope that we get the next one to drop soon. So I was looking out for that myself, but should be good. Some good stuff between I'm kind of looking forward to getting to know Whistles Go Woo and Big T kind of like on their own turf, because like you meet these guys at the finals and you get a certain picture of them, but then maybe their wife like tells you something you like never ever imagined. So uh is there any, I know you're speculating on what could be in the episode. Do you have any
Yeah,
predictions?
I'm looking to see you body slam Big T. It's what I'm most looking forward to. I'm sure that's going to happen. You got to put those nerds in their place, right?
That's right, man. I kept ragging on Big T for being too much of a nerd. So I'm all like, watch the tape. Anyway, like let's before we get into the game here, guys, if you could hit the like button, and if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button for all of our content. Now, let's talk about the inactives first and foremost. So the big one, we kind of got a heads up earlier today that Cordarrelle Patterson would be inactive. Now, this one's kind of interesting because Wayne Gallman had a little bit of steam picking up, but Mike Davis has been the other running back in Atlanta that everyone's into. So quick reaction to that before we break it down fully.
Quick reaction
To
to
Cordarrelle being out.
Cordero being out. Yeah, I mean, I really like Mike Davis, especially on DraftKings. I mean, on FanDuel, he's just a great point per dollar play. I think that his ownership is only at 30%. Yeah, I like Mike Davis a lot on both sites. Is what it comes down to. Wayne Gallman is way too expensive on DraftKings, but now I'm a little bit afraid of full fading him because he's going to be the RB2 now. So all it would take is a Mike Davis injury or surprise he's the starter. I'm not expecting Wayne Gallman to be the starter, but I guess this makes it more of a possibility that he has a bigger role than I'm expecting. But at that price tag, I'm still pretty scared of Wayne Gallman. What do you think of the news? What are you taking away from it?
Well, I think that the hype is on Wayne Gallman because he got a lot of work last week, but then like there was an explicit report that said Gallman only played a lot because of a blowout. So the Falcons did pull Matt Ryan as well. So that was frustrating because I bet the over on Matt Ryan completions last week. I'm like, damn, they might lose the game by 30, but he could have hit that if he stayed in.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think Wayne Gallman is a risky play. I don't want to take a stance from like absolutely not, because like there's a decent chance that we got this wrong, but I think more likely than not Mike Davis is the guy. Now on the Patriots side, um, we got Jonnu Smith is in, so that was reassuring. And then JJ Taylor is a healthy inactive, so that's because Damian Harris is back this week. But let's start it off with the road team, the Patriots. So let's talk quarterback. Mac Jones has been kind of inconsistent. It seems like half the weeks they run the ball a ton, and half the weeks they throw a bunch. So it's pretty hard to figure out what they're going to do on any given week. What's your take on Mac Jones tonight?
I mean, he looks pretty great in the top showdown plays tool. So I'm trusting that. I'm going to be playing a lot of Mac Jones. I typically like to play the quarterbacks anyway. I mean, they just project the best. For them to not get there, they have to be really bad. And he's only 10,600 on DraftKings. That's a pretty reasonable price. So yeah, I'm going to be over the field on Mac Jones, both in the captain spot and the utility spot. I just think that he's, I mean, do you think he's the best rookie quarterback? He's got to be up there. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is obviously in the conversation, but I think Mac Jones is right there. What do you think?
He's been playing well. I mean, he's had some really solid performances. Doesn't seem to make a ton of mistakes, unlike some of the other rookie QBs. However, a lot of it is the game and the team situation. So I'm not gonna throw the towel in on Trevor Lawrence quite yet because the Jags are like pretty rough team right now, and then the Jets are even worse. So it is.
You're a Bears fan, right? Justin
I'm a
Fields.
Lions
Oh
fan.
yeah, I knew that.
I'm excited to see maybe Tim Boyle start this week. So he's a good pickup if you have a super flex league, because the word on the street is maybe Goff doesn't start. But yeah, I think he's one of the better quarterbacks. As you said, there's a great chance that they make the winning lineup. Now, Matt Ryan on the other side, man, the performance of the Falcons last week was just dreadful. What did he make of that, and how does it affect how you're feeling about Matt Ryan this week?
It doesn't really affect how I'm feeling about him this week. I mean, you got to kind of play it week to week. Matt Ryan, we have a pretty big body of work. I mean, he is getting older, so I guess you could worry about it because he's getting older, but I'm not too concerned about Matt Ryan completely falling off and just last week being who he is now. I think that Matt Ryan's a good enough quarterback that I definitely wouldn't full fade him. I'm going to have a lot less Matt Ryan than I have of Mac Jones, but I'm going to still have, a fair amount of Matt Ryan in my lineups. Looks like I'm going to be about even with the field on Matt Ryan, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. I think I'm going to be a little bit under the field in the captain spot on Matt Ryan, just because I think it's kind of unlikely that he is the best captain, especially because he's the most expensive play. He doesn't project as well as Mac Jones, so I'm going to be a little bit under the field in the captain spot, but about even with the field in the utility spot. I think that he's a solid play, and Matt Ryan has those weeks where he just throws for 4 touchdowns, and it wouldn't be that surprising if he does it this week. He's got plenty of he's one really good weapon, and then plenty of guys who week to week, who knows, they could do it. What do you think about Matt Ryan this week?
To me, it's all about the passing volume. It just seems like the Falcons, they really game plan to pass the ball a ton. Having Cordarrelle Patterson out this week kind of makes that even more likely. So I do feel like Matt Ryan is a safe bet this week. I'm definitely going to have him in most of my lineups, just because of what you said, that the quarterback position more often than not is in the optimal lineup compared to other positions. So the one thing I kind of am thinking with Matt Ryan is he makes a little bit more of an interesting quarterback compared to what you might expect. And the reason why is you have 3 receivers. You got Russell Gage, Tajay Sharp, and Olamide Zacchaeus, as well as Kyle Pitts. Hayden Hurst is out for this one. So there might be some random tight ends that break the slate, but I think a lot of these guys aren't in every play. They're in like 2/3 of plays, like Gage and Sharp and Zacchaeus. So I'm kind of thinking it might be harder for any one receiver to put up a score that really surpasses Matt Ryan's if the Falcons go out and have a huge day. How do you feel about Matt Ryan, like relative as a captain?
So I guess what you're saying is kind of the opposite of what I have currently, which I have him a lot in the utility spot. But kind of what you're suggesting would be that maybe he's a better captain spot play because he's not going to be passed by his receivers, and he could throw to throw touchdowns to multiple different guys. So that is a unique thought that So currently I'm under the field, as I said, in the captain spot. That does scare me a little bit because he could just be throwing to a lot of different receivers. So maybe I should retool that. Of course, I have to do my FanDuel lineups and my Yahoo lineups before I can go back to DraftKings. Maybe I'll take advantage of that note in my FanDuel lineups instead. That does make sense to me, that he spreads it around enough that it would be unlikely that the other Atlanta receivers pass him. Then again, I guess I have plenty of Patriots guys in the captain spot, so I'm not too scared of it. Are you going to be over the field on Matt Ryan in the captain spot?
That I have made my lineups, but I haven't looked at them to to look at exactly the composition. But I do feel like the public has recognized that quarterbacks, it's a little bit tougher for them to make the optimal lineup at MVP or captain, because there's a good chance if they throw a bunch of touchdowns that one of the receivers passes them. So I'm always looking for situations where that's not necessarily the case. Of course, this is measured in all of our tools. So make sure to go to our top showdown plays tool, which has the percentages that we're expecting for all these outcomes. All right, let's go on to the running backs. So let's start with the Falcons this time, because this one is pretty interesting. I know you were saying you really like Mike Davis, and Wayne Gallman you're not as excited about. What are you expecting the public to do here? Because I know Wayne Gallman, there's been a lot of buzz about him, and there's also been, people like kind of saying that maybe he's not going to play that much this week. So what do you make of all of that?
Yeah, so I think that the public is most likely going to overreact to the playing time that he got at the end of the blowout last week. I'm sure a lot of people missed the news that he only played because of the blowout. So my expectation is that he will be over-owned relative to what he should be, especially because he is priced up. He's more expensive than Mike Davis. That kind of blows my mind. He's at 8,400, Mike Davis at 5,800. The tools have Mike Davis projected much better. And that's my expectation as well, that Mike Davis will at least have the first crack at it. So yeah, I think that I of course use the Awesemo ownership tool to come to these conclusions for the most part. And the Awesemo ownership tool has Wayne Gallman at near 10%. And that's just too high for Wayne Gallman at 8,400. He's just probably the running back 2. I like to play running back 2s a lot of the time, but I like to play them at 2,000 or 1,000 salary. I don't like to play them at 8,400. That kind of scares me off. So I'm not going to have much Wayne Gallman. I don't have 0, but I don't think that it would be wrong to have 0 in this spot. How about you?
Yeah, I think this is a trap play, so I wanted to make sure we talk about this in depth. I just feel like if the public wasn't thinking that there was a chance that he could be the lead back, then maybe the chance that that was true would be worth it. But I just feel like the general sentiment around Mike Davis has been so low because his performance has been pretty dreadful that people actually might feel better about putting Wayne Gallman in their lineups today. Like, strange as that is, it's not something that our ownership always quantifies, but 10% is higher than I would be interested in with Wayne Gallman at that price, because you're expecting like a full-time player for that price, and there's a pretty good chance that he doesn't get on the field like nearly as much as people are hoping.
Yeah, I don't mind paying up for a player who's in a bad spot. Like, I don't mind paying too much for a player if it's going to be contrarian, but in this spot, it's not going to be contrarian. So there's just really no upside to playing Wayne Gallman. I think full fade might actually be the best play, even though I got to 2% of him. I think that full fading him is probably a fine thing to do.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Now, on the Patriots side, the running back position is also pretty interesting because you got Ramondre Stevenson coming off a very solid performance. Now, Damian Harris was out for that one, so we don't really know if that's changed the pecking order with the Patriots, because since they run out Brandon Bolden as kind of like the James White replacement, he's taking a lot of passing routes. And then Harris is pretty much the opposite, where he just runs a lot of running plays. It doesn't get many passing plays. So that almost leaves Ramondre Stevenson in a no man's land on the average week, where he doesn't run the ball a lot and he doesn't catch the ball a lot. So do you think that might be different after Ramondre Stevenson's big week last week?
Yeah, that's the strange thing about this, is you really don't know what to make of it. Did he earn himself a bigger workload? Is Ramondre Stevenson going to come in and kind of take over the Brandon Bolden role? Or is Brandon Bolden going to retain his role? Is Ramondre Stevenson just not going to do anything? We really don't know. Or is Ramondre Stevenson going to take over the Damian Harris role? I mean, he played really well last week. So we really don't know what to make of it. My expectation is that Damian Harris will have almost the same role as he had, but maybe slightly reduced. Ramondre Stevenson will take away a little bit from Damian Harris, a little bit from Brandon Bolden. Brandon Bolden will mostly retain the third down and receiving back role, but we really don't know. So I think that we kind of have to take advantage of ownership disparities a little bit here. And it's kind of a tough spot to do that. I think that maybe going a little bit under on Brandon Bolden would be wise at 17.3% ownership, just because he might have a reduced role. I'm a little bit under on Damian Harris, which I don't know if that's the right role. I really struggle with this, I guess. I'm not totally sure what the right move is here. Maybe you can help me out. What do you think? What are you going to do with the Patriots running backs?
So my gut is telling me that Ramondre Stevenson is the fade. I think there's a lot more that goes into like who gets the playing time at running back, other than just like getting rushing yards and touchdowns. Where I mean, obviously, like they want the running backs to perform well from a fantasy standpoint, but like it's also about who's better at like blocking when the running back doesn't get the ball. That's something that doesn't show up in a box score. Damian Harris has gotten a lot of work this year, while Ramondre Stevenson at times has been a healthy inactive. So my general feeling is that we got to take the hierarchy from before and kind of expect that to continue. And that was one where Ramondre Stevenson had a very inconsistent workload. And since he just blew up the slate on Sunday, I'm thinking that there will be a lot of people kind of chasing that. Although I know people are a lot smarter now than before, so they might react to the context a little bit better than before. But I do feel like Damian Harris is the running back to target here. I don't know, but he's also interesting as a captain because he gets all his production rushing the ball, and that's a little bit of an advantage where Mac Jones isn't going to share those points with them. So how do you feel about running back captains today?
Yeah, I like running back captains. I feel like they're always reasonably. It looks like I have a little bit less Damian Harris than I'd like to. I'm probably going to have to retool this because I do think that, especially against Atlanta, I mean, they're a weak enough defense that I feel like any of these running backs could go off. I have plenty of Mike Davis, but I feel like I would like to actually get up to more of the Patriots running backs and just, there's potential that the Patriots could just get up by a lot and continue to rush the ball. So I would like to get to a little bit more of Damian Harris at captain than I have currently, which is currently I have 1%. So I think I'd like to get higher than that for sure. I think it's a good play. I think that the running backs, anytime they're scoring touchdowns, the wide receivers aren't. They're slowing the game down while they're putting up big points. So I like the play of Damian Harris at captain in particular. I going back to Ramondre Stevenson, part of my thought process was also that I was afraid of Damian Harris just fumbling and being pulled from the game. But looking at his game luck, he doesn't actually have that big of a fumbling problem. He just really hurt me when he fumbled against Houston on the goal line. That one stung me. So I think that I've overinflated how much he fumbles in my mind. He's only got 2 fumbles on the year, so probably not a huge concern that he's going to fumble away his lead back role. So I think I'm going to take your advice and maybe up my Damian Harris a little bit and lower my Ramondre Stevenson a bit and try to get some more Harris and captain. I think that's a good play.
Nice. Well, hopefully we can win the money here tonight with some Damian Harris. Now let's talk about the wide receivers a little bit. Patriots, Jacoby Myers, like it seemed like he'd never score a touchdown, but then he broke the curse on Sunday and in garbage time. Funny enough, he got there to the end zone. So he'd been a guy that had gotten the targets and the yardage, but never broken through for a touchdown. I mean, does that change your opinion of him now that he scored a touchdown? And how do you feel about him tonight?
Yeah, I never thought he was capable, so I just fully faded him, and now I'm gonna. No, yeah, it doesn't change my opinion of him at all. I was continuing to play him throughout his struggles. He was hurting me every week until last week. Finally, he got it done for us. Still didn't do that well that he actually helped us that much. But I like. I mean, he's their wide receiver 1, so I like Jacoby Myers a lot. I'm gonna have a ton of Jacoby Myers today. Hopefully, he can get into the end zone again, or just get 100-yard bonus. a lot of catches, a lot of ways that he can get there. I think that he is, the best receiver in the game. I think that he's going to be my highest owned receiver by a good amount. So yeah, I really like Jacoby Myers, and he's not that expensive. I mean, he's only 400 more than Kendrick Bourne, and I like Jacoby Myers significantly better than Kendrick Bourne. So yeah, I'm going to be playing a lot of Jacoby Myers, and not necessarily counting on the touchdown, but it would definitely help to get him in the end zone again if he's going to be optimal. How about you? What are you doing with Jacoby?
Yeah, I think Jacoby Myers is always someone that has stood out from the data because he hasn't scored any touchdowns, his fantasy points per game is a lot lower than what the projection is on a weekly basis. So that means his ownership's going to be a little bit lower just because he doesn't have that big number and those wins that people have gotten playing him. Tonight we have him at 10% owned in the captain spot on DraftKings, and we only have him at 9% on FanDuel. So on DraftKings, we have him at a 12% chance of being the top scoring player. That's the third highest on the slate. And if anything, I would say maybe the ownership could be a little bit lower than we have, just because my sense of the public, just in relation to Jacoby Myers, is that they don't love playing him. But this isn't a slate with a ton of studs either, so I'm a little torn there. What about the other Patriots receivers? We got Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. Aguilar kind of the deep threat. Bourne it doesn't really stand out a ton. What are you thinking with these receivers?
Yeah, so currently I am under the field on Kendrick Bourne by kind of a significant amount, and over the field on Nelson Aguilar by kind of a significant amount, just because Kendrick Bourne is 2,600 more than Nelson Aguilar, and Nelson Aguilar is, I think, the better play. So if they're going to be close to the same percentage owned, I'd rather take my shots on the cheaper guy who has, similar projection. I think of Nelson Aguilar as being the wide receiver too, and the projections bear that. I mean, they have about the exact same projection in the Awesemo tools, so not a big difference there. But Nelson Aguilar is the fastest player on the Patriots. If they bust out a big play, there's a good chance it's Nelson Aguilar. So I really like him at 5,000. I'm gonna have a ton of Aguilar, and yeah, Kendrick Bourne. Currently I have under 10% Kendrick Bourne, which honestly scares me a little bit, just because they do spread it out. It wouldn't be that shocking to see Kendrick Bourne score a touchdown and be optimal, but that's where I'm at currently. How do you feel about them? How are you breaking them down?
Yeah, I think I mean Aguilar is always a good boom bust play, so I like that. It looks like the one question with Aguilar is just will he get the targets? He's only been targeted on 14% of his routes this year, but he's out there 85% of the time for the Patriots, so you do get a lot of opportunities to hit that. Kendrick Bourne, he gets targeted a little bit more, but plays a little bit less. He's only out there about 2/3 of the snaps. So I think this one's kind of a roster construction one for me, where if I'm trying to build a lineup where I want Mac Jones to be in my lineup, I'm going to want to pick a couple of receivers with that, and Aguilar and Bourne kind of fill that role, but they're not people I feel strongly about either way. What about N'Keal Harry? That's the million maker play that no one will be on, but he's only out there about a quarter of the time.
Yeah, I mean, he's out there a quarter of the time, but like you said, he's a kind of a good play for the Millie Maker in particular. He's only 600 salary, project for 3.4% ownership. I should probably update that. I'm not sure if that has changed since I started doing my crunches. But he's not projected for a ton of ownership. He's only 600. It would take one touchdown for him to get there. I mean, some of these guys, for Kendrick Bourne to get there at 7,600, it would take more than one touchdown. I think for N'Keal Harry, probably one touchdown would be enough for him to be optimal. So I'm going to have a little bit over the field on N'Keal Harry. I'm not going nuts there just because he is their fourth receiver, and he's probably not going to have a ton of opportunities, but at 600, he should have at least a couple targets, I would expect, and it would just take one to get there for him to be optimal. So I'm going to be a little bit over the field at 3.4%. How about you?
I think these guys that are only out there a little bit of the time, It's been kind of growing on me because every single week I see like a random tight end get there, and maybe the next thing is a random wide receiver. But I yeah, I don't know if I'll have him other than in the Millie Maker. I guess I have him in 3 lineups, so that's around where the field has him. But always fun to talk about. Now let's talk about the wideouts on Atlanta. Uh, it seems like since Calvin Ridley's been out, it's been pretty inconsistent between them. Zacchaeus has had some big games, but his playing time is actually the lowest of between him, Gage, and Sharp. Gage, he kind of worked his way back from this injury, so he's missed some playing time this year, but he hasn't been targeted nearly as much this year as last year. So not too many exciting options, I'd say, on Atlanta from wide receiver, but because Cordarrelle Patterson's out, I'm expecting more wide receivers to be out there at any given time since Cordarrelle was running some routes. So at wide out, how are you feeling about Atlanta's wide receivers tonight?
Yeah, so I'm trusting the tools. I'm trying to get over the field on Russell Gage and Tajay Sharp, who both have positive leverage scores, and then under the field on Olamide Zacchaeus. I really like Tajay Sharp. I think I'm going to be well over the field on him, in part also because he's so cheap and he hasn't really done it. So people I think are not going to play a ton of him. We're projected for 19% ownership for a guy who is their number 2 receiver. And he is out there a lot. So I think the fact that he hasn't done it yet drives down ownership a lot. And the fact that he's 3,600 just allows me to leave salary on the table more easily for a guy who it wouldn't be surprising at all if he sees the end zone or, just pays off that $3,600 price tag and outscores Zacchaeus. It wouldn't be shocking at all. I think that they are. I mean, we have him projected for more than Zacchaeus, and he's cheaper. So he just allows for me to get unique just by going to him at 3,600, leaving some money on the table, hoping that he outscores Zacchaeus. So I really like Tajay Sharp. I'll be playing a lot of him. I'll be under the field on Zacchaeus, like I said, just because I'm trusting the tools. He doesn't get as many opportunities as you'd like for him for a player at 5,400. And then Russell Gage is the wide receiver 1 there. So I am going to be currently I'm actually just right about at the field on Russell Gage. I'm comfortable with that. He's projected for 27% ownership. I'm about there with Russell Gage, just because he looks good in the tools. He's a little bit more expensive, so I'm not going to have as much as I have of Tajay Sharp, but I'm going to have plenty of Gage as well. How are you breaking down those 3?
Yeah, I kind of like Sharp the most just because of the salary. From a playing time standpoint, he's been right up there with Russell Gage. He's averaged almost exactly the same number of routes. However, he's been targeted only 12% of the time compared to 16% for Gage. But his salary is okay. Gage is 6.5K or 6,600. Sorry, Tajay Sharp is only I'm trying to divide all these salaries by 2/3. It's really hard. This is 3,800, I think. No, 30, well, around there. So you're getting 3/4 of the targets for half the price, basically. So that's a gamble I'm willing to take with Sharp and Zacchaeus. The big red flag to me is he hasn't topped 57% of snaps running a route in the last 3 weeks. He's averaged only about 50%. So that's a big red flag. He had a huge performance 2 weeks ago where he got 20 fantasy points. And I'm hoping that maybe the public will overestimate that. And then last week he got 7 targets on only 52% of the routes. So I'm kind of thinking that he might be the riskiest given the ownership and the playing time. Let's go to tight end here. So Pitts, he's with Calvin Ridley out, he's been kind of the guy that we're expecting to take the next step. He was doing it last week until the game got out of hand and they pulled him. He went 407 for 60, playing only about 3/4 of the game. So that was a little frustrating since we all probably had a lot of them. But is he still kind of the go-to option as far as Atlanta receivers for you?
Yeah, I mean, I like Pitts a lot. He has a positive leverage score. I have right in line with his optimal percentages, so I feel good about that. Yeah, I think that he is their top target. He's their best receiver. The field isn't going too crazy. It doesn't look like they're going well over the field on him. Maybe they've never heard of tight end on Showdown, I guess. I don't know. I don't know why the field's not getting there, but yeah, he looks great. Looks great in the tools. So I'm going to be, about even with the field. I'm not going too crazy over the field currently. So he has let us down a fair amount. I got to say, I keep playing him. He keeps letting me down, but you got to forget about last week. So I'm going to go back to him again and play about even with the field, which is kind of a significant amount. How about you?
Anytime I can play a tight end in a showdown, I'm always going to jump at that opportunity. And Kyle Pitts, although a lot of people say he's not technically a tight end, he does have that TE, and that's maybe what the determining factor is there. Thank you, Jordan Lockhart. You've seen his name all over the Awesemo Hall of Fame because he's been putting up some big scores. He sent us a super chat. Boss man running the show. Thank y'all. Appreciate the hard work and advice. I think we'll see a little bit of Jordan Lockhart in the Hall of Fame section later. So I know he had a huge night last night again. Congrats, Jordan. Hopefully we can keep it going tonight. Now, with Hayden Hurst out for the Falcons, they did call up Lee Smith, or sorry, they called up Parker Hesse, and Lee Smith, who was a healthy scratch last week, is active tonight. So there are 3 tight ends. I mean, these guys are pretty far down on the list, but I don't mind a dart throw if you're in a large field tournament. Is there any reason you'd be looking at those guys?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I currently don't have any Parker Hesse. I'm just taking my shots on Lee Smith. I have seen a little bit of Lee Smith buzz on Twitter. I've seen several tweets about Lee Smith. So people are apparently excited about this backup tight end. I also heard Matt Kajeski on the show this morning was on Lee Smith as a play who could get a few targets, could potentially score a touchdown. So I think that he's definitely a fine play at 5.4% ownership, 200 salary. He's the kind of play that I've played a lot, and I've done pretty well with some of those plays this year. I miss a lot more than I hit, obviously, and I think we all do when we play these kind of guys. But if he does score that touchdown, he will pay off for whoever does play him. So I think that he's a fine play. I think the 5.4% ownership, I'm currently a little bit under that, but if you wanted to get over that, I don't think that he is the worst play to take a shot on there.
Yeah, agreed. I think that Lee Smith is interesting. And shout out to your lineup where you had Donald Parham at captain earlier this season. That was legendary.
Yeah.
I
just saw he just tweeted this week that his name is actually Parham. I've always called him Parham. So now I've learned he corrected us. It's Parham.
I'm glad that he put out that clarification because we could have gone years without realizing the correct pronunciation. So Lee Smith was inactive last week, but he was the one playing ahead of Parker Hesse. So I guess I agree. That would be my go-to. I have him 3%. So on New England, more exciting tight ends. You have Jonnu Smith, and he's active this week after being inactive last week. He doesn't play much, but he's been targeted on 30% of the routes that he has run. And he's gotten numerous touchdowns as well, where Hunter Henry plays a lot more, but gets targeted at a lower rate when he's on the field. Henry was in the winning lineup this past weekend with Jonnu Smith inactive, kind of picking up some extra work there. So I'm kind of wondering if people will be going back to Henry. How are you feeling about these guys?
Yeah, so I think this is one of the bigger stands that I'm taking is I'm just betting on Jonnu Smith, and he doesn't even look that great in the tools, so it's just kind of a gut play thing. Actually, he has a positive leverage score on the tool. Okay, good. I'm glad to see that the tools do agree with me. I thought I was just doing this all based on my gut, but the tools back it up, which makes me feel good about it. I just think that we've seen Jonnu Smith in the past have good year. I mean, he scored 8 touchdowns last year. He is a player who can score some some touchdowns, who can make some nice receptions, and he's 2,400. I think that people are going to overplay Hunter Henry. He had a bigger role last week because Jonnu Smith was out. So I'm taking the stand. I'm going well under the field on Hunter Henry. Also, they were saying this on the morning show, and I agree with them. It's going to take more than just one touchdown for Hunter Henry to get there. He's also going to have either several receptions or, 60 yards. He's going to need something in addition to the single touchdown at his 7,000 price tag for Hunter Henry to pay it off. Whereas Jonnu Smith, one touchdown, maybe an additional 10-yard reception might be enough, might be all it takes for 2,400 for him to be optimal. They paid Jonnu Smith a lot of money. It's kind of surprising that they haven't used him more as a receiver this year. My hope is that they are going to change that at some point. And he actually has several games where he has 5 or 6 receptions. So I really like Jonnu Smith here. If he's coming in at 10.9% owned, whereas Hunter Henry is 19.6% owned, I'm going to be about double the field on Jonnu Smith and well under on Hunter Henry. How about you?
Nice. I am not ending up with a ton of either one, but I feel good about playing them when I do have them. I think Henry kind of coming off that big game, maybe not quite as good as he looked there, and Jonas Smith, the playing time isn't that high, so he's kind of a touchdown or bust option. I don't know if people are really actually playing tight ends more in Showdown or not, but he seems like he could be a little bit more popular than one would expect. Although his game log's pretty bad, he hasn't done much in a few weeks, so maybe he'll go under the radar there. I do want to mention our sponsor, No House Advantage. They have contests for tonight's Showdown slate. 5K, 2K to first, and the way it works, you pick 8 different props, and you rate them from most confident to least confident, and you play in DFS style tournaments, so you're playing against other players betting these props and not the house. I'd rather play against players than the house if I had the choice, because obviously they're going to make a lot more mistakes. Now, that being said, we have to pick the right props for this one. Which ones are you looking at today?
So my favorite is the over on Mike Davis, 35.5 rush yards. That seems kind of like a slam dunk to me. I mean, it's our expectation that Mike Davis is going to be the top running back for Atlanta, that he's going to get the bulk of the carries. 35.5 rush yards is just not that high. So I'm going to take the over on Mike Davis there all day.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great over with Cordarrelle Patterson out. These lines don't move, so we got to take advantage of that. I'll take the Matt Ryan over on interceptions. His play has been pretty shaky, and the Patriots defense is solid. So the line is only 0.5. There's no juice on either side. So if you go to the sportsbook, that'd be like minus 180 probably. But you're getting even odds on No House Advantage, so that's a good way to get an edge. Let's go to the defense and kicker. So. Oh dang, we got Sean V in chat says, imagine fading Hunter Henry. Now I'm feeling nervous.
Uh-oh.
All right, defense. Now you got the Falcons offense hasn't been great this year, and then you got a rookie quarterback on the other side. So how much are you playing defense compared to an average primetime game?
Not a ton, and it makes me a little bit uncomfortable, just because the Patriots defense, I feel like they're I mean, maybe I'm remembering the Patriots defense of old. That's scaring me when they had like 20 points a week for like 5 straight weeks. But it always scares me a little bit to fade the Patriots defense. But at 5,600, I think that they need to score a touchdown to get there, and it's just not that likely that they're going to score a touchdown, even against Matt Ryan and the Falcons. So I'm going to be well under the field on the Patriots defense. The Falcons defense, I'm also going to be under the field. It is, neither of them are getting that much ownership, so it's a little bit of a spot where you could go over the field, and the Falcons are playing against a rookie quarterback. This could be the game that Mac Jones is a little bit off. Wouldn't be that shocking for a rookie quarterback to struggle in a game here or there. But for me, I'm betting on other spots to be better than the defense. So I'm going to be a little bit under the field on both of them. How about you?
Yeah, the defense is always one that I try to get over the field on in general, because I feel like a lot of people build lineups in Showdown trying to maximize their fantasy points. The problem is that works really well if it's a high scoring game, but if it's a very low scoring game, you might not get the right combos just building based on fantasy points. And defense usually is not the most optimal play. The defenses tonight are kind of expensive. Patriots are 5,600. That's well north of the average defense. And there's negative leverage on them to boot. So those numbers don't look good, but I'm really using this situationally. So when I play Patriots defense, it's because I'm not thinking that the game scenario I'm playing for, like the Falcons are going to do anything. Basically, like I'm just going to try to nail the Falcons player that has the most fantasy points and 5 Patriots, or like 3 plus kicker and defense, just hoping that a lot of the production is consolidated on one team. So that's a go-to strategy for me. But yeah, it's like defense, you want to kind of build your lineup in a way that makes sense for the game script. I did see some defenses winning big prizes recently, like against the quarterback of the opposing team. Like, now that's something I don't generally recommend, but what's your feeling on playing a defense and then having multiple players from the opposite team?
Yeah, so I'm on the opposite side of that. I'm all for it. I think that it's something that the field really is afraid of doing. So it's a way to get unique pretty easily. We've seen lineups that like don't even leave salary on the table, but just because they have, you know, the quarterback or the captain and the defense from the opposite side in the same lineup, even using like all the salary, it's only duped 4 or 5 times. So we've seen that win a lot of money on some of the showdowns recently. I think this would be a fine spot to do it. I think that both of these quarterbacks, it wouldn't be that shocking to see either of them throw a pick six. And I mean, that's what you really, that's the ideal scenario. If you do that play, the quarterback on the opposing defense, the pick six where the quarterback loses 1 point, but gets the ball back and they're now in a better game script. I mean, a little bit. It's a touchdown that they lost, so now they're ideally going to have to throw a little bit more, and they get the ball right back. So they're. I think that that's a spot where there's not, if there is a pick six involved in the game or just a defensive touchdown. I think that is kind of a positive leverage in that scenario. But yeah, it's something that I like to do just to get different. I think that that's, you know, one of the bigger things that you need to do if you're trying to win a lot of money on Showdown is to get different. So I do like doing it even despite just a little bit of negative leverage. And like I said, this is a spot where I think that it's a good game for that. There's no Aaron Rodgers involved. There's no Patrick Mahomes involved where you're afraid of you know, the defense just getting crushed. So I think it's a fine spot to do that.
Definitely, I agree. Now kicker is always a controversial topic because no one wants to play him, but usually the odds are good that a kicker is going to hit 2 field goals more often than less than 2. So when they do, they're going to put up about, you know, 8 or 9 points at least, and that could be outscoring most of the value options. So they do sneak into my lineup more often than I feel like I want to play the kicker, but I think that's a good strategy. So how do you feel about kickers tonight?
Yeah, so I love Nick Folk tonight. He looks good in the tool. He's a great kicker. They should be putting up some points. So yeah, I'm gonna have more than the field of Nick Folk, even though he's coming in at fairly high ownership, 22.8% ownership currently, and I'm coming in a little bit over that. I'm coming in well under the field on Young Ho Koo, which scares me a little bit. I think that if I am able to recrunch here, I probably will try to come up a little bit on Young Ho Koo, just because I'm so far into the field. I think that he's a fine play. It wouldn't be that shocking to see Atlanta stall out in the red zone a few times today, and at 4,000 that might be enough. So I think both kickers are in fine spots. I'm taking kind of a stand currently. I'm playing a lot more Nick Folk than Young Hoku at the moment. Are you taking a stand either way on these guys?
So I always want to have the kicker from the winning team, because I feel like a lot of times you have the kicker and the team's down, a bunch of points, like 15 points or something, and then they stop even trying to kick field goals. So I do like make game script kind of where I have a bunch of players from the same team. So I do agree Folk is the better option tonight. This is a dome game, so I think that really favors the kickers tonight. And I think that I saw that the Patriots are very conservative with play calling, where they tend to not run fourth down plays with short yardage. So that's a big advantage for kickers. Thank you, TF, for the super chat. He says, betting my ass on FanDuel Cash. Jones MVP, fading Myers. Thoughts, Neil? How do you feel about Jones MVP and no Jacoby Myers and FanDuel Cash?
In cash, okay. Yeah, Jones at MVP seems to make the most sense to me. So I like that a lot. Yeah, I think I'm fine with it. Looking at Jacoby Myers' price tag, he's a little bit up there. I think I'd prefer to have Jacoby Myers in that lineup, but I think I'd be okay if you think that there are other players that just project better, that make sense in that lineup. I'm okay with it. What do you think? I don't play a lot of cash, so you might be the better opinion to get here.
I'd say on FanDuel, you definitely want a quarterback at captain. The scoring setup favors quarterbacks. So I think Mac Jones, keep him in the MVP. And then wide receiver is kind of, a little bit deprioritized on FanDuel. So you could go kicker with Nick Folk instead of Myers. And I think Mike Davis is a great cash play tonight, given the Cordell Patterson situation. So, or just him being out. So that'll probably be how I start my lineup off. Got a super chat from Gene. Thank you, Gene. He says, when do I get my free Awesemo hat?
Oh,
yeah,
so I paid for my hat for the record. I didn't request a free Awesemo hat. I just went and bought it so I could rep Awesemo on the stream. Yeah, what do you think of my hat? I don't know. It's I try to always like curve it like a baseball cap. I don't know if these caps are actually made to do that. Am I doing it wrong trying to curve it like that? What do you think?
I'm not the right person to ask. I like to show off my hair, so I don't wear hats a ton.
Yeah.
But I do like that hat. It's got a nice like sleek design, so it's kind of cool that we get the merch. I think the best advice I can give you is that all the guys on our streams wear the hat backwards.
Yeah.
So are you not into the backwards hat?
No, I think I'm too old for it. They're all a little bit younger than I am. I got a little bit too much forehead here. It would just be a lot of forehead there. They all have like hair coming through, so I don't think it's for me.
I didn't realize that's what that made that work. So now
yeah,
I'm
you gotta have some hair there. Yeah.
All my hat fashion. Let's talk about the Awesemo Hall of Fame real quick before we give some final thoughts on tonight's slate. To qualify for the Awesemo Hall of Fame, go to awesemo.com/avatar, download that and put it as your avatar on DraftKings and FanDuel. Then when you finish top 3 in a contest with 5K people or more, you can get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. First on the list, we got our man, Jordan Lockhart. He took down the monster with just 3 entries, and then he tied for first in the night slate. Cool, $104,000 last night. So major congrats to Jordan. He's been on an unreal stretch this past month. A lot of big wins. So hopefully keep it going tonight. Congrats to Pickens, 81, tied for first. He had Alex Caruso as his first guy. I gotta to appreciate that. Billy, he said he took third in the mini max with the Awesemo tools. Mini max is tougher than people give it credit for. There's a lot of entries, so finishing third is no easy feat. Congrats to Bananastopoulos. Or B Anastopoulos. That must be how he pronounces it. All right. Sean, one of the guys that does a lot of work behind the scenes at Awesemo, tied for first in the Millie Maker, and he's still waiting for his 956K. And T.O. Deck went back to back on FanDuel Showdown slates Sunday and Monday. got his first 5-figure score with 20K on Sunday, and then followed it up the very next day with first in the same contest for 13K. Major props to TO Deck for pulling off the back-to-back. Congrats. All right, let's
Wait, can I comment on some of those real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, I have never seen a stretch like Jordan Lockhart. That is incredible. Keep it up. TO Deck back to back is really impressive. What I really want to say is Sean John. I thought about saying that we should have him on the stream tonight because my guess is that he's in the play-in tonight for the Tournament of Champions. So I'm hoping that we can see Sean John's lineup at some point after lock and see who we're cheering for, so that he can get. I'm sure he's playing for the Tournament of Champions tonight, so I'm really excited about that. Just want to touch on those because those are some excited. Oh, and the mini max. Yeah, I never played the mini max, but I've seen the scores that you need to win the mini max, and it seems like it might be harder than the big tournaments that I play. So yeah, those are all really impressive.
Yeah, I bet that's awesome. That the Tournament of Champions playoff. I hope that Sean takes it down, and then the mini max. Yeah, I actually did some research. I found it's actually tougher than the large field, like $10, $20 tournaments on DraftKings. So it is nice to be able to mass multi-enter without breaking the bank. That's the main advantage there. Let's talk some final thoughts here. I mean, we got 13 minutes left to complete some lineups. So just stepping back and taking a broad view on tonight's slate, what are your general thoughts?
It's going to be an interesting one. I think that there's a lot of unknowns here. My biggest stand, I think, is Nelson Aguilar and Jonnu Smith to a lesser extent. I guess I'm cheering for those Patriots receivers. Although I have plenty of Jacoby Myers as well. So I guess it's a tough one to get too unique because it is a little bit condensed. There's not like 6 receivers on a team that you want. It's basically each team there are 3 or 4 playable receivers. I think that the biggest stand that it sounds like you and I are both taking is Mike Davis is going to be the running back 1, and Wayne Gallman is kind of a big fade. I think those are kind of the broad strokes on this slate. What do you think about the slate in general?
Yeah, this one's interesting because you got some really weird dynamics going into it where, like, for instance, Ramondre Stevenson is coming off this huge game, and now we don't even know if he's going to get a full workload because Davian Harris is back. At the same time, it's like the same thing on the Falcons where they had such a miserable game. Like, are they going to want to change it up? Mike Davis hasn't been doing anything, so people are on Wayne Gallman. But I feel like the public is already kind of moving on from their priors with these guys. So I feel like my move is to play that the original situation is the more pertinent one where Damian Harris is the running back 1 and Mike Davis is going to get a lot more work than Wayne Gallman. Also, one of the things going into the slate is the Falcons have been so bad the past week that I think people may overestimate the chance that the Patriots dominate this game and underestimate the Falcons passing. They just throw out such a high volume that I'm willing to just kind of build whole lineups based on the Falcons having a big game through the air, and no one's on some of the guys like Tajay Sharp, so you can kind of make an interesting lineup. What do you think of Atlanta as a team this year? Because, man, they have not been as good as we're accustomed to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Matt Ryan's kind of getting old. I think that Kyle Pitts is going to be great, but he's not there yet. Obviously, Calvin Ridley being out hurts a lot. Their defense remains pretty bad, so I think they're not a team that I'm afraid of this year. I think they're a pretty bad team, but I think if they can find a quarterback to replace Matt Ryan next year, I don't think they're that far off from being a team that could go places. But yeah, this year I don't think they're a great team. What do you think?
I think I don't know what to make of it. I think they've been a little bit unlucky, maybe. At the same time, like, because they play in a dome, like, they should have really sick stats, and the stats just aren't very good at all. So you'd expect that, like, playing there half the games, they would be doing a lot better. We have a question in chat from News God. He says favorite prop tonight. Neil, have you been betting the props, and are there any tonight you're looking at?
I have not, because I'm not allowed to in Minnesota. But let me pull up Odd Shopper and take a look. Do you have any that you want to start off with?
The prop that I feel most confident about is the Ramondre Stevenson under on receiving. And there's two bets. You can bet the under in receiving yards, but the under in receptions has better odds on the under and is more likely to hit according to our simulations. So what I'm looking at with this one is that Ramondre Stevenson over the past 6 weeks, he has averaged about 25% of the plays running routes, where Damian Harris also was out a couple of the like 1.5 of those games. So I'm thinking it could be even lower than that 25%. He's been targeted a lot though on the routes he has run. So that could get, if he plays more than I'm expecting, that could get bad. But I just don't know if that's his role on the team, is kind of being a receiving back. What do you come up with here?
Yeah, so Mike Davis, I mean, I'm going back to the same prop as earlier, essentially. This time it's 39.5 rush yards. I'm still going to take the over there just because Odd Shopper shows an expected ROI of 30%, an expected win rate of 70%. I really like that. So I think I like that Mike Davis prop. And then I'm seeing Olamide Zacchaeus receiving yards under 36.5. That looks really good. 63% expected win rate, 18% expected ROI. So I really like that as well.
Nice. Yeah, I like the under on Zacchaeus as well. What about maybe some sleeper plays that maybe are like min price guys that no one would think of? Are there any last guys in that you're looking at tonight?
Yeah, I mean, so we touched on Lee Smith. I'd say he's definitely one of those sleeper plays. We kind of lost one when Christian Blake was ruled out. He was a guy that I probably would have played. So I guess it's good that they ruled him out, so I don't have to worry about it. N'Keal Harry, we talked about a little bit. I think that he is a good play at 600 at 3.4% projected ownership. I'm over the field on that. I think that he is a solid play. He is one of those guys that could just do absolutely nothing. But all it would take is one touchdown for him to get there. So I think that he's a pretty solid sleeper play. Yeah, there's no other real like really cheap guys who look great. Is there anybody else that you like there?
I think there's a couple of ways you could go. You got Frank Darby at 1% ownership. I'm kind of thinking that maybe he picks up the Blake routes since he did play last week in garbage time. He's active tonight. And then Parker Hesse for Atlanta with Hayden Hurst out, only 1% owned. And I'm even getting to some Keith Smith. Now this one I feel like horrible about because he's the fullback. But maybe could sneak in for a touchdown.
I like it. I like it. Now that you say it, I have 0% Keith Smith. But now that you say it, like he's different than the other two running backs. So he is the guy that, would it be that shocking if we see him get a goal line carry? With Cordarrelle Patterson, we don't really know what to expect. So yeah, they've only got 3 running backs active, I think. So I like the Keith Smith call, even though I currently have 0. It's interesting.
Thanks, man. Yeah, the logic with the Keith Smith call is on a lot of weeks he's run routes on about 10% of plays, which isn't that exciting. But I'm thinking if he gets one catch, like maybe that's enough to push him over Lee Smith and Frank Darby. So I'm like, if there's a $200 guy optimal, it could be with 1 point, like doesn't have to be anything big, but maybe I'm getting a little bit too excited about this. Anyway, I got 5 minutes left. Now, who are you feeling most confident about at captain tonight, and maybe who do you wish you had more of?
Yeah, so Mac Jones is the one that I'd say I'm feeling the most confident about. He just projects really well, and he's cheaper than Matt Ryan. Definitely the one that I wish I had more of, and maybe I'll try and retool it, is Damian Harris. I have under 1% Damian Harris, and that terrifies me. I think that he's a really solid captain play. It wouldn't be that shocking if he is the MVP on FanDuel, which would require that he be the actual highest scoring player on the slate. It wouldn't be that surprising if Damian Harris is that player. So I would like to get to a little bit more Damian Harris than what I have. I think I'd like to get over. The field is projected for 8% captain Damian Harris on DraftKings. I think I'd like to get over that number. Where are you at? Who are you afraid that you're fading a little bit too much, or who are you confident in?
I feel like Kyle Pitts is a smash captain. Like he hasn't strung together any huge games, but he's been targeted a lot since Ridley has been out. I think he's gonna be popular, but definitely one of the top options tonight. The guy I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable with not having as much of is Damian Harris as well, because it just feels like the game script could set up really well for the Patriots rushing. And like you think back to Sony Michel and Damian Harris himself, like there's a lot of weeks where I feel like they get 2 or 3 touchdowns, and even though they don't project well, like from a fantasy points perspective. So I know we've all seen that numerous times here over the years.
Could I ask you a question? What do you think of? So I was kind of thinking about this. So Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson are both so expensive that it feels really thin to play them in the same lineup. I like to a lot of the time play 2 running backs from the same team in the same lineup, but because they're so expensive, it feels really thin to me. Do you think that the ownership of that play though will also get so low that it actually could be a plus EV spot, or do you think the ownership will be still too high for guys that are 88 and 8,600?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think I like playing the running backs together as well, because if this is a game where one team dominates, like teams don't like to give their running backs more than 20 carries. At least normal teams don't. So that's the situation where you'll see like Harris and Stevenson each get a lot of carries if the game is a Patriots domination. Now the pricing, that is the caveat, but I think that if you do build this kind of construction, you could consider like the Patriots defense. You could maybe throw Nick Folk and run it back with a receiver on Atlanta. Probably, I think if you have a Stevenson and Harris, you probably want to have a 5-1 stack, or what do you, maybe 4-2? What do you think?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, are you thinking 4-2 with the Atlanta guys being the 4 and the 2 running backs being the 2, or?
No, the opposite way,
Okay.
where like you're just hoping Atlanta doesn't do much if you have both Patriots running backs.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't actually think that much about construction beyond like trying to pair quarterbacks with receivers a lot of the time, and playing running backs often with defenses or kickers. So yeah, it's not something that I give a ton of thought to, just because I kind of let Fantasy Cruncher take care of it for me a lot of the time. But yeah, I think that's a good call.
We got one question in chat here from JGT. Said, "Are you guys playing a Josh Rosen lineup?" I've been kind of trying to figure out if, like, I have just not put any backup quarterbacks in my lineups because I don't want to like deal with having to like figure out the right way to handle that. But like apparently it's a leak because they seem to be winning the slates a lot this year. Have you crossed over to playing backups?
So I've crossed the other way. I used to do it a kind of a fair amount because I do see the merit to it. Like that is the easiest way to just cut through the field, right? Because if nobody else is doing it and you're the only one that does it, it's not that uncommon for quarterbacks to get hurt. So I don't think that it is the thinnest play. I've gone away from it because I think that there are other ways to get unique that are more likely to happen, that don't, require the starting quarterback to get knocked out. So I typically only play the starting or the backup quarterback if I have reason to, if the starting quarterback looks like he's a little bit banged up or might be at risk of losing his job. I will say there's one one of the like lineup review sites that I follow came to the conclusion, I didn't totally follow the logic, but they think that it might be plus EV to play the backup quarterback in every one of your FanDuel lineups. So that's something to think about, I guess.
Well, FanDuel, they had him at 5K before, but the last slate, they priced him up. I didn't look at it this slate, but depends on the salary, I think.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Guys, we're locked. So thank you guys for tuning in. And thanks, No House Advantage, for sponsoring the show. If you haven't checked them out, make sure to give them some love and use the promo code Awesemo for a first match deposit bonus of $25. And thanks everybody, and good luck tonight. We'll catch you guys tomorrow on the shows.